back to the LEC Spring Split. For those just joining us who don't like spoilers, block your ears now. Vitality and Schalke are mathematically eliminated from playoffs. Our stats team just updated us in the break. You got to cast the game. It's a team that is heartbreaking because they did play fairly well at different parts.
Yeah, I feel kind of bad for them because they've showcased in the second half of the split so many positive things, and it's just a couple of individual mistakes, not everyone stepping up at the right time, but you can see that some of the stand-up performances. Odoamne has honestly had a fantastic split. I think that Inax has stepped up dramatically, and I think that they could have won today's game if it weren't for a few things. So huge commiserations to Schalke. I hope that they can have a better shot next split.
Let's hope they can build on that. Let's turn our attention to the next game. Ahead of the 2020 season, Fnatic made one of the biggest roster moves ever. They changed their superstar jungler Broxah for the up-and-coming Selfmade. Now, we wanted to ask a question. Who got the better deal? Broxah just had a huge week for Team Liquid in the LCS. So before Fnatic take on SK, we want to discuss who got the better deal. Team Liquid getting Broxah or Fnatic getting Selfmade? You guys at home can join in on this segment by spamming TL or FNC. And let's start. What was Broxah to Fnatic? What did it mean? Let's understand what changed before we can answer the question.
So, when Broxah played for Fnatic last year, his whole playstyle was very much about working with Hylissang and playing a lot through the mid lane and then bringing that pressure to elsewhere on the map. It was very effective for Fnatic, and it's worked for many years in terms of his early game aggression synergizing very well with that of Hylissang. It's quite different from how we see Selfmade approach the game because Selfmade is a lot more independent. He's a little bit more of a selfish jungler, but also very creative and reactive jungler. So rather than coming in with a game plan, kind of doing something very similar to what you do every game, he has different ideas, different responses, different reactions, varying from game to game.
Yeah, because I mean, when you look at Broxah, this is the type of a player that is going to make good laners on his team or great laners look even better because he's always playing for his lanes. It's not about how he can min-max the farm in the jungle or anything like this. It's making sure he can get to a lane when it needs to be unfrozen. When his lanes are calling that a dive is a possibility, he's going to be there to make it happen. And that's why I think he's a phenomenal fit in with Team Liquid, who have 3 really dominant lanes over in the LCS.
And I think it's important to point out that Team Liquid last week had their best performance all year long. Fnatic statistically also had their best performance. Got a couple of clips here of Broxah from last weekend's games. And this is now going to set us up a little bit more. We've talked about the stylistic differences, but I want to know what else about Selfmade will factor into this discussion before you answer the question.
Yeah, well, first thing I have to say, once the jet lag wore off with Broxah, looked a whole lot better here in week 6. When you do sort of investigate like the deeper for Selfmade and how he is going to apply here to Fnatic, it feels very different. As Vedius was saying, like he is impacting the early game in a different way. He's actually going mid lane a whole lot, which was not really Broxah's style on his own when he was playing with Fnatic. Even their games last week, like Selfmade level 3 is looping around enemy vision, doing really creative things to catch enemy mids by surprise.
And I think it's funny because when you look at Fnatic at the start of the spin, a lot of shade was being thrown towards Hylissang and his poor performance. A lot of it's because Hylissang had to learn as well how to operate with a different jungler.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Selfmade was very much about, I play for me, I don't just stick to the style that you're used to. I'm going to gank top, I'm going to gank mid, I'm going to sometimes come bot, not as much as you're probably used to. And as a result of that, it's generated a lot more creativity and freedom. And you have to remember that with the introduction of Mythy as well, that's changed a lot with how this team approaches the game. Much more creative drafts, very different approach to overall playing the game.
Well, of course, we have talked a little bit about how Fnatic in the last few weeks maybe had like essence of G2 last year. If you guys look behind you, the fans at home are voting that Fnatic got the better end of the deal. Obviously, we've only seen a few games from Broxah, but closing thoughts before we hit to picks and bans.
Honestly, I wish there was a vote to say that both teams won the deal because like I think they actually did. Like Fnatic got the mid-jungle synergy they were looking for, bringing in Selfmade next to Nemesis, and TL have been looking for upgrades. Broxah over Smithy is an upgrade and is going to make that team look better.
What I can tell you is the team that did not get the upgrade or win the battle is SK, because Selfmade goes up against his former teammates who are looking for some signs of life after a tough spring split.
Absolutely the case. Quick shot, I'm Drake, this is Frostgren. We're going to be bringing you SK Gaming versus Fnatic. Interesting cop-out answer there from Ender at the end. Everybody wins! Participation award! One of these teams is fighting for first place. The other team is very far behind Cloud9. Ender, how about that?
I always think that when that discussion comes up, Brox is in a really tough scenario because it's like if you're in the LEC and you actually want to win, if you're not on Fnatic and G2, your chances of winning are basically non-existent. He left Fnatic. So it's saying, is joining TL better than joining a team that's probably not going to win if you were already on the winning team? So I think Brox made the best
This
of
is very dark.
a bad situation there.
Well, SK fighting for something, fighting for pride today. To be honest, more than anything else, we get ready for Champion Select. Medic didn't sing along earlier. Both of us at any point could sing along, audience.
I'm not doing it.
You'll have to stay tuned. It might happen. But here we go into the draft. Now, it's important to remember what happened the last time we saw these two teams play each other. It was Ornn in the mid lane. It was a Rengar in the top lane for Bwipo, and it was SK honestly getting demolished. So we're going to have to see what has changed in the last few patches and in the last few weeks for both these teams.
And of course, SK in this draft phase come flying out of it with the target bans. I'm a bit concerned banning Syndra from the blue side. We'll see where that means that they want their priority pick. I would expect it that they would give it to Crownshot. So if they get the option to get something like the APHELIOS, even though they've been much more active at going towards the Misfortune. SK are a big Misfortune team, but it feels like Crownshot is really kind of the diamond in the rough on this squad. So usually when you have a priority pick between Jenax and Crownshot, if you leave the Syndra open, if you leave the APHELIOS open, probably gonna err on the side of Crowny.
Now to see. SK have the luxury of the first pick. A lot of AD carries left up and available. Only the Senna taken off the board.
It's gonna be the APHELIOS lock.
Have the options. And I'm honestly not a big fan of this Frostgren when we look at the names on the screen. Obviously, for any team, APHELIOS is an incredibly powerful pick, but he needs a lot more attention, he needs a lot more peel, and Crownshot, as he said, is the sole diamond in the rough here.
And again, it's why you do something like you ban Syndra from blue side. You don't necessarily have the same flexibility, and also it's the fact that Crownshot is your guy, so you want to give him the power tool. Also, Fnatic are one of the best teams at playing APHELIOS. They really make use of his different weapon forms and making sure that you're always maximizing that champion. I think Rekkles is the best APHELIOS in the league, so you definitely can't give that one away. But that means the easy answer is Misfortune GRAGAS.
Yeah. We'll have to see if Hylissang wants to put his Thresh into the mix as well. It has been a very strong duo for Fnatic so far this season. Misfortune and Thresh in general, giving that extra safety, the power to roam, with Misfortune having her own Moby boots on top of Thresh actually buying them. And SK may want to respond with a jungler of their own here.
Kind of the big three supports left for Hilly since his Recon has been taken away that usually gets paired with the Misfortune is, of course, you can go for the Leona, you can grab the Thresh that you talked about. So those are kind of the two champions that are teed up, as this is a super common second rotation. Lee Sin, LeBlanc has so much power in that 2v2 mid-jungle. So they're just stacking as much power as possible there for SK, especially for how Selfmade and Nemesis have been playing recently, which has been a lot of the camping of the mid lane with that Veigar.
Yeah, the setup there definitely pretty easy to pull off all of LeBlanc's dashes. Of course, the return on the distortion will not get caught by the baby cage, but the dash in will. It will now be the GP, though, locked in for Bwipo on the top side, so it appears looking to secure a safe blind pick.
I also think that already in the first three picks, I personally feel that Fnatic just won kind of across the board. Yeah, you get a power pick like APHELIOS, and Rekkles is then put on the Misfortune, but GANGPLANK is so good against APHELIOS because he is still a quite immobile ADC. You just drop the ultimate on him, and he has a really bad time. So I think in first three picks of what we've seen, I'm really leaning towards Fnatic even without the nameplates.
I think the thing is that when you look at this, you know that SK, all the eyes are on Trick and Jenax to really execute the Lee Sin LeBlanc combo, because you can see the theoretical power there, but when it comes to ease of execution, Frostgren, I think you're right. GRAGAS eats immobile champions for breakfast. The same is true for GP, and an MF ult on top of that, it's just dirty. So the question is, how do SK respond?
I think they're setting up for a Leona here with the Thresh being banned, so there's a potential that SK Gaming could see that it's coming and try to ban it away. If Leo gets banned, then maybe Hilly goes for his Nautilus. I personally think that Hilly plays Nautilus kind of how he plays his Thresh. If you actually watch where he throws his hooks, like, he'll hit a lot of towers and hit a lot of walls and get pulled into situations that he doesn't want to necessarily be in, which as Thresh, you obviously wouldn't be punished for that same type of maneuver. Yes! I was hoping it would be the Yasuo GRAGAS. You look away from your screen, you're dead.
I really want to see it, but I don't believe it. I'm not going to believe it till it's locked in, Frostgren. I haven't seen it. It's not the Nemesis special. This man is the only person in the history of League of Legends to come out and say he wants to play Xerath on stage. All right. Will be the Lulu instead. Of course, just setting up for more potential Yasuo synergy, I'd like to say for the record.
Is it weird that I feel like it's a mid lane Lulu?
No, I don't think... I mean, it's weird because, yeah, that's weird, but no, it's not weird because it's Fnatic, and if Hylissang is not a Lulu player.
I also just think that Lulu does decently well into LeBlanc. She can survive a lot of the burst damage, so you can neutralize that lane, and it kind of fits with like Nemesis's not weird champion pool, but weird.
I mean,
champion
it's a weird
pool.
champion pool. Let's just call it what it is. Off the wall, creative, innovative, if you want to be positive. But that's going to be the Karma now, coming in as the final pick. Have to assume this is going up into the top lane in the hands of Sacre. And also something really crazy is happening here at the LeBlanc. Of course, Sacre, remember, when he entered the league, he was very good on ranged champions. So maybe he can get something done here on this Karma pick. That would be spicy. All of these things are spicy. Just
like
give me
that.
one of them. Okay, ZAC locked in. GP mid?
So it is a Lulu support.
No.
ZAC support?
ZAC support. No.
No.
Jeep, no. Okay, all right. I didn't think we had to play this game unless G2 was on stage, but here we are. We're waiting for 20 seconds. No one
Okay.
say anything.
GRAGAS support.
GRAGAS support. Also good.
Let's look at SK Gaming until 20
There we
seconds.
go.
As you were just talking about, Sacre was kind of known as the ranged mage player when he came into the league. So going back to comfort picks here, he's basically just going to be pushing waves back and forth and offering utility. This is still all about Trick and Jenax. They need to pop off here in the early to mid game and make space for Crownshot. That he actually gets to play the game, and we got it.
ZAC support. I didn't know I wanted it because I didn't really know it was a thing. But now I know. Because I am excited. It is ZAC support for Hylissang locked in against the BRAUM. But I think you said it, Frostgren. SK are the underdogs here. We know that. It's Jenax and Trick to get through the early game, and it's the power of the Karma and the BRAUM to put everything they have on protecting Crownshot in the mid to late game to get through all these beefy boys on the side of Fnatic. It's going to be a tall task, most certainly.
Crownshot is just going to have a terrible time. Can you imagine a ZAC flying back on you, a Gangplank ultimate on top of you? That is brutal.
Absolutely, but here we go. ZAC support finally showing its face here in the LEC. Fnatic versus SK about to get underway. Third game of the day here as we get closer and closer to the end of the split. SK versus Fnatic, level 1. As SK come zooming out the base. They have the BRAUM, they have the Karma. They are very strong at level 1.
They've also got the Oracle's Lens on limit there for the BRAUM, so this is usually the indicator that a delayed invade is at least going to come out. Meanwhile, in response for Fnatic, they placed a ward. I believe it was Rekkles' Trinket, and now he is resetting himself. And you have double Oracles on Rekkles and Hilly. So I have a feeling something fishy might be happening.
And I'll be honest, I'm still grinning about the ZAC support. For those who don't know, I love weird bot lane picks. And I know this has been seeing a lot of play in solo queue. Not as much competitive, but I want to see it play out because the theoretical output is very high. But with a player like Hylissang, you never know what side of the coin you're going to end up on.
I mean, to be fair to Hilly, on a champion like ZAC, even if you put yourself in a bad situation, it's hard to punish.
True.
Obviously, between how naturally tanky he is, his passive, and then all of the utility on top of him. Here's the delayed invade that you were talking about. It's the fact that with SK's champions, they are very strong in initial level 1s, especially if you have BRAUM there. That said, Selfmade is starting topside. He's not doing the Raptor start that we've been seeing all day for GRAGAS. Most of the GRAGASes today have been doing Raptors into full clear topside, Predator boots reset into blue side. Talking on the analyst desk, they praise Selfmade very heavily for his creativity and pathing. So we're going to keep our eyes and see what he does, and it looks like he's going to trade for a split map.
Makes a lot of sense. I like that Bwipo's giving him the extra time of day to help support in this lane. Obviously does not want to walk in level 1 against a Karma. Starts with the Sapphire Crystal. Bwipo knows what's going to happen in this lane, and it's not the Bwipo that we've gotten to see in the set matchups where he gets to play really aggressive. I think no matter what he does, he just has to play the back foot here.
I mean, Sapphire can be a pretty greedy build because you can then immediately go into a very early Sheen on like initial back. So I actually feel that this is like almost disrespect and that you're against a Karma and you just have extra mana. The fun thing about Bwipo is I personally think he's our best GRAGAS player, or not GRAGAS player, Gangplank player, as he'll just sprint at you level 1 because GP is so powerful then.
general, as we now see Trick making his way into the mid lane. The flash and the chains are going to connect. Trick has the lineup Q. That's going to be free, but now they're under the tower. Nemesis goes down. First blood, and we asked to see it in Champ Select, and SK delivers solid first play.
Very well done there. The setup from Jenax, of course, had to force his flash, but trading flash for flash on LeBlanc versus Lulu is still going to go into favor. Hold it, though, because Selfmade may be looking for a counter gank, but I think Sacre heads up about it.
Difficult to pull off. Of course, the mantra W, if it is up and available, offers so much healing here in the early game and the additional movement speed as well. Hylissang going to get the pullback there onto Crownshot. He's sticking around a little bit longer than he wanted to, but the extra lifesteal from the Severum makes it quite easy. And I keep accidentally touching the screen and drawing circles in the bottom left-hand corner.
I wasn't going to say anything. I'm like, you having fun with the circles today?
Pretend they haven't noticed. Just right in front of me.
So we talked about how the flash has now been traded for Jenax, so...
Oh, knockup is there. Now the leap forward from BRAUM is going to buy them a bit more time. Rekkles is forced to cleanse out 3 stacks of the concussive blows, but nothing else. And Trick is now here on the bottom side, but very aggressive lane is what we're learning about the ZAC. Now, of course, ZAC has passive up and available.
Trick is done being the farm jungler.
Go in. The setup is here with the BRAUM. The concussive blows, very easy follow-up. Crownshot can slip right back to Gravitum.
Selfmade is on his way.
Give a lot of damage done. They have to be very quick here. The kick does connect. Rekkles flash down safety. Trick leaps back. That's a TP coming in from the LeBlanc. Jenax. Sightseeing.
I actually think Jenax should have just gone hunting for Rekkles there.
I mean, yeah, I think he could have gone for it. Interesting TP.
He didn't know where Selfmade was, so maybe just playing it overly cautious. His wave got shoved in. He needed to respond to it. So
but what I will say, Frostern, is that I like this pace of game from SK. While we can call that maybe a bit of a fumble there on the TP, everyone really ready to commit for that fight. I like that they're playing at a bit more of a breakneck pace. I like that we see Trick going for these aggressive ganks, giving up a few camps to make something like this happen, because this is the most pressure we've seen on the Fnatic bottom lane just about all season. 10 CS down up against Crownshot as they're going to try to freeze this wave under their tower and make up some of those losses, but a really solid start for SK Gaming so far, almost 1,000 gold in the lead.
I mean, I think it is kind of one of those things where I'm seeing how ZAC support is actually going to execute, especially in this matchup. I'll hold it though. Limit, looking around. I feel like ZAC support's kind of similar to BRAUM support in the idea that it's not necessarily about the 2v2 power, but it's about the 3v3 power. BRAUM's one of those champions that in most 2v2s, especially if you counterpick him, he can get punished because he is a short-range melee support. But when his jungler shows up, suddenly things look great because he has that added CC. I have a feeling ZAC support's kind of in a similar vein. Melee champion, unless you just like brute force in the ADC matchup, which APHELIOS versus Misfortune, you don't, especially depending on what gun he has. But if the jungler shows up, you feel great to go flying in.
Yeah, and I think it's just kind of the nature of any champion that doesn't have a lot of damage innately. We're so used to the Nautiluses and the Leonas of the world, but now Hylissang going to be in trouble. Kick in, Selfmade. Going to dash forward, but that's forcing out Trick's flash, and he now has to leave the area. So Fnatic a little bit more proactive now, trying to play around the clear focus on the bottom side from SK Gaming. We thought it'd be all about jungle mid, and while it did start there, certainly it's been all about the bot lane since that moment.
I feel like the one thing that SK are missing is involving Jenax more into these side lanes. So I would like to see Trick kind of go back to Jenax, help him get priority, then maybe look for either skirmishing or floating to these side lanes, particularly bottom.
Follow-up is there. Hylissang going to get the knock-up. Now the GP ult is coming in, but Crownshot remains relatively untouched. Damage coming in for Hylissang, but I believe he still has the passive. Trick now pulling back. They are going to walk away from this one. Big trade in the mid lane in the meantime. But that GP ult down, and Fnatic really not getting much for it. So overall, still, I think a positive trade for SK as Crownshot's alive and well enough to hold this lane.
And it was really clear investment and pre-plan from Fnatic. The fact that Selfmade sat in that brush for so long, probably communicating that the Gangplank ultimate was about to be available, and they could try to force that play bottom. Losing the Gangplank ultimate, not having it pay off, I still feel like isn't the worst case for Fnatic, because I think their scaling relative to these compositions is really strong. LeBlanc, unless you get super snowball ahead of the clock, doesn't have a ton of kill pressure on these champions, especially Lulu. So if Lulu's in a game, she can deny assassins so hard. So even if Jenax does get super snowballed, he might not even have kill pressure on anyone due to the, what is it, wild growth?
Yeah. I mean, between the wild growth and the help picks, it's just so much shielding, especially as you build AP. And this is one of the reasons the solo lane Lulu was such a terror, is because she was a bully early game, and then she transitioned into this horrible supportive state as you went later on. Now, admittedly, they took a lot of power out of the early lane bullying of Lulu, but still obviously doing fine in this matchup, holding own, even CS despite the early advantage for Jenax. And I'm curious where they're going to kind of put the wild growth outside of just mitigation, if they're going to use it more aggressively, because other than, like...
You could use the bounce house.
Just leap in with the ZAC and then immediately wild growth him.
The ZAC hits you, and then you immediately get like knocked up from Lulu, then a body slam. Like the amount of CC lock potential for Fnatic on this composition is pretty fun to watch. Not fun to play against.
Definitely not fun to play against. And you really got to feel for Crownshot. The fact that he has not died yet in this game, despite I think Selfmade coming bottom 3 times, is pretty solid.
This is something that I do like about Rekkles, and something that we usually compliment Rekkles on, his ability to play weak side. Things like the Ezreal, his Karma, even Misfortune can do it. He's able to play super safe in the lane with either the double up or the make it rain range, and then using the W speed, he keeps himself safe while Hilly just kind of pieces out and looks around the field for some plays to make.
All right. Continuing on in this game.
He went for a wander, he came back.
Now Crownshot backing off. Hylissang there. Okay, I gotta bring it up because it's making me laugh way too much, and I need people to understand that I'm not just laughing at the laning phase. This circle keeps coming back, but it's a bug. I swear I'm not touching the telestrator. If you see the circle, it's not my fault. We're working on it. I have to push it every time to delete it, but I'm not touching the screen as the audience is my witness. Circle is not my, it's back. I didn't touch anything.
Wait, just...
The circle is determined. Just cross it out.
Just... Oh, we can move it!
What is... All right. We're not just derailing the game. This is intense League of Legends. We can't get rid of it. It just goes back. Anyway.
Did they just say, let's go circle?
All right. I love you, Berlin. Thank you so much. I think we're good now. There are more... Just promise me the next time you see someone bring up forced narrative that you'll bring up the circle in whatever thread you see it. That's my only request. All right, back to League of Legends. It's 10 minutes into the game. SK still have a small lead, but I think anytime you're playing against Fnatic, a small lead is not enough of a lead for me to be convinced yet. But it is still a good start. Will even look better as there's a few more items to come. Waiting for Jenax's looted Zeko to be completed. Trick now finishing the Warrior, as you can see on your screen.
Trick also picking up the Herald right now and is sprinting bottom. You saw the assist pings coming out of Fnatic. So the Gangplank ultimate is back up. The teleports are just about to come back up for both top laners. And it does feel like we're about to see a potential explosion happening bot side.
Comes the channel, the dive in. Crownshot's already been caught out. That's going to be 1-2 on the autos, pull them back together. Now Kiss says the ZAC, the knockback is there. Easy setup, clean follow-up, but SK, they're ready for a party here. They're full committing. Rekkles just says no. He pushes his ult. SK is forced to walk away, and just a clean overall decision coming in from Fnatic. But now the ZAC's not done. Hylissang's still going forward. You know he's still got a life left. That means another kill for Rekkles and Fnatic. Just like that, 1K gold lead for SK deleted. Bwipo's moving in top side for a few plates of his own, and Fnatic are in complete control.
Yeah, that's the big swing that Fnatic wanted. Like you said, Bwipo gets all that time in the top lane. They make all of the kills go on to Rekkles in the bot side, and Nemesis got the early rotation without using his teleport, whereas Jenax had to use his teleport reactively to match.
Oh no.
And the Dragon's on their side?
And the Dragon. I mean, to be fair, I understand what Trick is doing there. He's trying to recoup. He knows Fnatic are probably going to reset. Maybe he can get something done. Doesn't know it's warded. Nemesis just walks over, doinks him. Nothing he can do.
Is that a technical term?
Technical term for the little pix auto. It's a doink.
I was surprised if you'd say it. No surprise, Hilly on the support ZAC is maxing his elastic slingshot.
Yeah, extra range, of course, per rank that you put it in on top of the cooldown going down. And this ZAC is just a nightmare to deal with. There's so many champions that they need to hit, but they're kind of forced to hit the ZAC in this case.
And you're also getting a sneak peek at how this game's going to go for Crownshot for the rest of the series, which is the Gangplank ultimate on top of the ZAC. And he's like, this is fun.
Yeah, not, as you mentioned, really fun for the ZAC, not really fun for the immobile 80 carry. And this is what you talked about in the first 3 picks of draft, Frostgurn, is that how easy it is for Fnatic to just punish SK's draft. And now Nemesis getting frisky. Going for the doinks. Not going to get anything else, though, as Selfmade now floating around the outside. They say anything you can do, we can do better, but the knockback will not work. Crownshot does. Flash out to safety, but they're happy to have that flash, because we've heard from so many players before, if you get the APHELIOS flash, you win the next team fight.
And Fnatic are constantly one of those teams that force you to make repeated critical decision-making on the map. They'll always fight you, so they'll be sure to punish a missing cooldown that viable and important. So the counterplay here was that Fnatic were getting charged on by the Herald. They pulled the trigger immediately for multiple teleports as well as the Predator top. The Herald has now taken their top tower down to 1 plate, but it feels like Fnatic very much in tempo of this game, chasing SK off their lawn.
Yeah, and Fnatic are such an interesting team because it feels like as we've really solidified this top 3, we've kind of had to figure out an identity for every team. And the one thing that interests me, Frostgarden, as you can see, obviously the stats are great. They're winning, they're putting up big numbers, just like, you know, Fnatic can. But the craziness in the draft is new for me. It feels like they took all the crazy that G2 gave up this year, and they took it for themselves. Now we've got Lulu in the mid lane, we've got ZAC on the bottom side of the map, and Fnatic just feel like a new team in 2020.
Yeah, I think creativity is probably the word that I'll use for it. And I also think the responsibility for Bwipo on the team, it felt like the big meme for a lot of Fnatic fans is, there's Bwipo, dying again in his lane. But this time around, or at least in the back half of spring, I'll hold it.
Is there. Ulti comes out, but the chain CC is not quite right. Bwipo just uses the ult, and both sides are going to walk away.
But this split in 2020 spring, at least in the most recent weeks, Bwipo has been on fire. This guy has been attacking every single matchup and is such a treat to watch, especially when he gets on a pick like Gangplank.
Yeah. Of course, this game is kind of neutralized, but still we're seeing the effectiveness in team fights with these ults. And while he is suffering in lane, has 2 assists, has been impacting the map, has not given up too much otherwise.
Also checking in on some of the initial completed items and build paths. Lulu going for the Roa and then probably an Athene, so a very kind of like tanky, supportive oriented build. Not that far out of the realm in the last time that we saw a Lulu in the mid lane. Where it is the Ludens completed for Karma. We'll see if she now deviates and goes towards an Athene's of her own.
I'm curious what the planning is, because Karma's just a pick that we haven't been seeing as much recently. Obviously saw a bit of it as support in the LCK, but now with both of these champions completing Ludens, with Lee Sin having the Warrior champ, first items across the board for a team that we kind of expected to thrive in the early game, I feel like this is SK's best opportunity to get the ball back in their court and to make some sort of play across the map.
Unfortunately, there's just not like a big objective for them to try to force Fnatic to fight them. And even if they did, I don't feel really strongly if they just actually hard win the fight. Like, I understand what you're saying with the completed Ludens. You also have the Essence Reaver now on APHELIOS, but I think, again, with Fnatic's composition, with their champions, what they can do, they neutralize a lot of what SK want to do. So I think Fnatic, if SK want to try to force something, will feel really confident to try to fight SK for it.
Yeah, as you said, they have the tools. Nemesis has the extra level, one more point in the ultimate, which will be huge in terms of mitigating a lot of the damage Jenax wants to put out. And the ward is there as well, and Nemesis is just kind of baiting him. Taking his time, doesn't want to walk too far into the lane. And you can see SK's game plan. It's very visual, it's very apparent, very telegraphed, because Trick is now showing his face on the bottom side. They want to use these items. They want to knock Nemesis off the map and try to get a greater advantage, but Nemesis playing way too controlled, way too patient. But meanwhile, in the mid lane, Hylissang's getting kicked off. The pullback, that's a clean combo! Oh, and Limit goes golden just in time to realize exactly how that one works. Fnatic put all the pieces of the puzzle together and come out swinging.
Here comes the flank, though. SK not done.
Sacre stepping forward. The lead back is there. Mantra Q might not be enough. Trick the flash. Has to kick back to ZAC instead. Now going in, though. Jenax is going to get one back in return, but Rekkles still steps forward. SK will get one back, but doesn't quite balance the scales.
And again, it's at what expense when they make that collapse. Yeah, they get the one, but it's now Bwipo and Nemesis getting a lot of time on these structures on the top side. I actually think Bwipo's going to pick up this tower, so still feeling very confident for Fnatic in terms of cross-map advantage.
Gold obviously very heavily in favor of Fnatic. Feels like they've got control of the map as well, as SK are just forced to kind of respond where Fnatic are going. And we can take a look at this one more time, but all I'll say as a man who's not played ZAC support yet, I want to play ZAC support after a play like that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, the combos. This is something that Fnatic, when they had Broxa, whether they have Selfmade, that they've always been really fun to watch, which is the combinations that they can use. So the Broxa Hilly was the Lee Sin Rakan. This game with Selfmade and Hilly, it's the ZAC GRAGAS.
Just beefier. A little bit more leap in your face. And the good news for SK in the whole scheme of things is that, yes, they're losing out in a lot of trades across the map, but they're always getting something back. In this case, they've got the 2 Drakes. Now they've got the Herald as well. And the question becomes, how can they use it?
And it's back-to-back Heralds. It's the fact that Fnatic are matching them on these fights, but that does mean that Fnatic are being delayed in terms of their reset timers back onto the map. So Trick is, like you're saying, at least getting some scrapes here because he gets back on the map faster, they get better position, they grab Herald. They probably want to use it mid lane, although Trick is hovering underneath Jenax still.
It almost feels like SK just...
They're going to rinse and repeat. Every single time Gangplank ultimate is up, Hilly and Selfmade are just looking at Bwipo like, ready to press R. Let's go find Crownshot.
But I like that SK have backed off. It's definitely a fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice.
They can't stand under the tower.
No, they can't go anywhere near Rekkles without knowing where ZAC is.
Oh, Bwipo's coming to the party too.
Of course, he's going to get spotted out here. In comes Hylissang. Nope. They can now walk down to third Drake. Of course, Infernal's still a minute away, but they can set up vision, they can get a bit of control, and they can look to punish Jenax on the bottom side. Tower goes down, but Predator is coming out. Jenax going to be forced to burn the second dash if he has it. Chilling Smite. Cass goes back, not going to connect. Good footwork by Jenax. Pulling back, playing patient, but Fnatic will get nothing there. Spending a lot of time, but will not be able to find a kill.
There actually seemed like some indecision from Fnatic. Hilly was rotating down, and I think the fact that Jenax had some fancy feet, he managed to dodge the cast, but Selfmade continued for the chase, trying to tag the barrel slow. There might have been communication of, are we forcing to dive on this? And maybe no, Infernal's about to spawn in 30 seconds. There's no need to try to force a play like this. Wait for next Drake.
Now to see if Fnatic are willing, with the kind of advantage they built up for themselves in terms of the raw gold, 2K in their favor, to just force a fight around Drake, to take the fight, if SK are going to look for it. Or will SK just go back to having Trick kind of shadow this LeBlanc and fish for a pick?
I mean, SK are definitely setting up for it. They've got full vision control. That said, with champions like GRAGAS and ZAC, you can face check a little bit easier. Bwipo's also level 13, so he's got full access to the barrel timers. So he can start pulling off the fancy barrel picks. It's much stronger now for Gangplank to group up with his team and team fight.
Has the GP ultimate available as well. TP now coming in. Fnatic clearly looking for a fight. Hylissang on the back of the pit. They know that he's coming in, but the ZAC leaps forward. The GP ult is there, and there's just nothing Crownshot can do. He's forced to flash out to safety. Big ult comes in from Rekkles, but it gets interrupted. Well played by Limit. Fnatic are just going to walk into the pit and take this one away. They don't need to force anything else. Bwipo may have different plans, though. Throwing a barrel over the wall, going for the big autos. Jenax was not ready for that amount of damage, and here comes Selfmade. Get ready, keep your eyes on the GRAGAS. Where's the play going to go? But no, it's the ZAC from the back line. Hylissang leaping in, he's fearless. It's the wild growth, it's the follow-up. It's the Infernal ult, but it is not enough. Bwipo overstays his welcome, and SK turn the play into a 2-for-1 in their favor.
Yeah, Fnatic trying to force a little bit too hard there, trying to feel themselves. SK managed to stay grouped up together. They have good target selection, and they do burn some people down, but here comes potentially round 2. It's not worth it, Selfmade. Walk away.
Don't want that one. All right, Crownshot now takes up to level 11 as well. Getting some gold additionally in that play, but you see here why it's bad to be Crownshot in this game.
And again, force that flash. So you know that another team fight is just around the corner when you're facing across from Fnatic. Crownshot again stuck on APHELIOS against this composition without flash. And the next one could potentially be the Baron. And that's the dire situation that SK are in. Despite the fact that on the back half of this play, Fnatic, you could say, overdive. SK are allowed to pick up some of those kills, get something back for themselves. But I feel like the end game is in sight for Fnatic around the corner.
Yeah, a bit of a head scratcher. Ooh. Ooh, 2 hands on the head. All right, I didn't think it was that puzzling, but there it is. And you can see what GP is doing in these fights. Obviously, a lot of damage there from a number of parlays as well as the GP ultimate. And I think when Fnatic gets set up, there's just not a lot SK can do to contest them at this point in the game. Because there's just not the same amount of tools to protect Crownshot that there are for Fnatic to dive Crownshot.
And so we've talked about now Fnatic want to fight. They want to punish that flash being missing. You can see they're moving in, creating pockets of vision. They need to get their wave set up so they can truly feel comfortable going for this Baron.
Hylissang the tasty bait to get this kicked off. Lulu's shield will give away that someone else is there.
Needs to disengage because Bwipo needs to set up the top wave.
See if they're going to clear out bot as well. Bwipo just going to take the recall. Very strong. We have the supportive build from Karma, you mentioned earlier, with the Athene's Unholy Grail matched by Lulu in the mid lane.
I mean, Karma players who have played this build are like, supportive, that's
Hits like a truck. Can also heal Crownshot build.
feels good at this point in the game. I think Karma, people think that she just like falls off, stops doing damage. Karma actually hits pretty hard for a big portion of the game.
I would say Mantra Q always hits like a truck. question becomes, does Sacre, is he going to be the kind of guy that Mantra's Q every fight, or is he on Mantra shield duty?
He has to be on Mantra shield duty because he's got to get Crownshot the hell out of dodge.
Yeah, and I think that's the nightmare, is you want to be strong enough in lane that you can be the, you know, firing into the back line, hitting Qs, blowing people up.
I think like responsibility in terms of these team fights now changes up. So you have, we talked about Karma's ability to disengage Crownshot when Fnatic decide to dive on top of him. But you also have Trick on Lee Sin with the Dragon Rage kick. Like, theoretically, there are tools here that if Crownshot survives between Karma and Lee Sin, maybe they try to walk it back.
All right, Frostgren. I feel you. I see it. I see it too. GRAGAS cast, Lee Sin kick, can serve very similar purposes. We can get the disengage. It is possible for SK, but it is a very tall task. We have not seen that level of execution come from them yet. And
also Trick on the bottom side of the map as the Baron is started.
Fnatic though still going to back off.
They don't do it super fast.
I don't think they saw Trick.
SK, they don't know that he's on the bottom side.
Yeah, I think they just went for it. They were just testing, seeing if they would get contested. But they're going to push out the vision. Trick is now here in the general area. Predator's been popped. So LeBlanc is pressuring on the bottom side. They're trying to put Fnatic in a split decision, but Fnatic have already started the Baron.
The thing is there's not a lot of punishment for Fnatic to continuously do this. They want the teleport because of how quickly they can turn off the Baron. They want SK to show up. It's like, we either get this or we immediately leap off of it and start the fight.
3K, three-man knockup from Limit, but there's no follow-up here. Jenax has clean access to the backside. Trick now leaping in, trying to shut Selfmade down. 3K on the Baron. It will start to reset. It will heal up. Fnatic can just walk away from this one. But they're going to have to give Hylissang's life one little bloblet. Not enough. Now Trick could look for the follow-up play. The Sonic Wave has connect. He can go over the wall. He can try to find it, but Fnatic, I think, just getting a little too aggressive there on that one.
So the error there was the fact that Selfmade tanked for so long and he didn't have any sort of health. Now when Hilly failed the initial engage, didn't tack anyone, and Selfmade is under 50% health, that's when Fnatic were like, okay, we need to cut our losses. We've messed up here. We've tanked too much. Instead of, again, turning off Baron and immediately looking for the fight. And it now puts SK in a brilliant position where they get to push down mid and they have first priority onto this Drake that spawns in 7 seconds.
Yes, remember, they already have 2 Drakes. This will put them up to soul point if they can get it. It will force the fight. Now remember, Fnatic didn't really use any major cooldowns. ZAC's passive, really the only one to speak of.
Crownshot has flash again.
And the GP ult has already been used. This is the best possible fight for SK if they want to take it. But they are split, and that is going to be a problem, because as Hylissang starts to walk in, they have to respect the elastic slingshot. Trick is in the pick. SK don't want the fight. They just want to try to sneak this one away before Fnatic can get in. I don't like that decision, and Fnatic immediately punish it. SK, very questionable.
Oh, they disengaged off of it. Trick was like, maybe I can try to get this and then W out to safety. Now Hilly looking for the engagement.
Fnatic smell blood in the water. Hylissang may stay for too long, however. SK still have to be respected here on the fight. The GP ult's still not up. Crownshot is still going to be very difficult to dive onto. Jenax isn't going to go back there on the distortion. Fnatic instead just going to turn for the Baron. They get the Infernal and they get the Baron too. That is going to be just about GG.
Just creating space, they need to take the time to invest to clear a double control ward. Obviously, when you place double control ward, that's a lot of hits before you can clear it out. It's usually a vision that is easier to defend, unless you all decide that you want to let it go.
And now I feel like we've got the handshake on the reset, as all the vision's gone. Fnatic complete control of the pit. They will be able to get out of this one. And you can see, this is the second time Trick has wandered in the pit alone to try to finish a Drake. It just does not work out.
Barrel damage on top of, what, it was the smite as well?
Yeah.
Well played.
Oh, and the desperation play is not a good look at this stage of the game. It felt like SK were coming back into their own. The gold was evening up. They could have pushed to the point there.
I don't know if it was desperation so much as just mis-execution. Maybe it's one of those things where like SK are very rarely finding themselves in this position. So not necessarily with the greatest experience, but how to secure those objectives. Definitely giving a lot of respect to the fact that they didn't have eyes on ZAC initially. Didn't know where he was going to come from. And when you're split like that, you have to come from the same side. So SK found themselves in very unfortunate positioning around the pit.
They did. Things are only going to get harder for Jenax on this LeBlanc to burst someone down, as we do see the itemization now coming through. We got Ardent Sensor. Yeah, for both Sacre and Nemesis, so they're on even points in the game for both the more supportive champions here.
Deathcap also just around the corner as the armor penetration has come in from Jenax, the Oblivion Orb, and now then looking to complete his Deathcap. So social media will be happy.
That's going to be pretty big. And I think that initially, after those first few plays, or when Fnatic really started to take steam back under when they got into bot lane, I thought this game was going to be out of SK's control, but they've been doing a pretty solid job. Bad news is that Bwipo is still very much a thorn in their side, and that while Jenax is fishing for plays, Bwipo is just actually getting stuff done here on the bottom side of the map.
And I think that there's this unfortunate reality when it comes to, again, the win conditions for Fnatic at this stage of the game, that Bwipo and this Gangplank in a side lane can be a breaking point. Eventually, he's just going to become too obnoxious to handle, and then also we'll always have that cross-map play with the ultimate. So it feels like the 5v5, there's a clear-cut plan for Fnatic. They fumbled kind of their early mid-game by overreaching for that Baron, tanking way too much damage, but otherwise, this feels like a game where Fnatic have been firmly in control. SK finding their windows when they can, but are very quickly getting choked out.
It looks like a first-place team versus an eighth-place team, and it's important to note, if SK lose here, they're out of playoffs contention. So when we put that hesitation into context, it makes a little bit more sense. At the same time, when you put LeBlanc's damage into context, Fnatic need to be careful.
There's that completed death cap that we were just talking about. So Oblivion Orb, Ludens, and death cap, you can see that Jenax is starting to hit hard. Now that said, probably still wouldn't have kill pressure on Selfmade because Nemesis was in the area, could use the wild growth to disrupt, but Jenax, if Bwipo's kind of the breaking point for Fnatic, it feels like Jenax can be that breaking point for SK, and he just needs to find his targets. You just need to find Nemesis asleep at the wheel on this Lulu.
There's ways to do it. He's been very respectful so far. If you're wondering why he's not constantly aggressively leaping in, it's because that whimsy comes in, turns you into a little animal, you instantly die. So it is a very difficult game for Jenax to play out. Has not opted to go for a QSS or anything. Is just sticking with all the damage he can get into his back pocket.
I like to think of LeBlanc as a human Nidalee spear. I think I've made that comparison before. Because that's what it feels like when she hits you. She's like a poke champion. She just flies over the wall, slams you. She's great at sieging because of that. Disappears in fog of war.
It's so accurate and so toxic at the same time. It feels appropriate.
Just think about every Nidalee player that you know. They probably also play LeBlanc. It's like that same mentality. Some people just like to watch the world burn.
Yeah, I want to one-shot people and I don't want them to interact. If they get to push their buttons, it's not a fun game. Only I push my buttons.
I want to one-shot people with no skill attached.
Come on. I mean, give LeBlanc players a little credit.
Except when they're just slamming distortion on people. If you do fancy things with the chain.
Well, hold on, though. Hylissang may have overcommitted here. The rest of the team now following up, but Crownshot has been caught in the pinch. Fnatic don't have the follow-up, but it's Limit who is now in trouble. Will be forced to back away. Predator coming out. Selfmade looking for the second engage. Hylissang looking for the second engage here. Will wind up on the Elastic Slingshot. Fnatic looking for their third Infernal Drake.
Rekkles is actually just going to take it by himself, and the rest of Fnatic will sit in vision to distract them while their ADC takes it. This is a very staple move in League of Legends, but especially for Fnatic.
Double vision. 2 times Rekkles taking that Infernal Drake. More damage for the fight to come, but Nemesis is now very low. He has the ultimate available. SK, though, getting caught in the pinch here. They're now split off. No one is there to protect Crownshot. Sacre has to be careful, but does a lot of damage. Whole team now retreating, and Fnatic forcing SK back might mean that they get to start the Baron themselves.
They just actually want this mid-tier tower. Check out Rekkles again. He walked towards the fight, and he's like, if SK get caught and we can wipe them, then obviously we win so much harder here. But the big victory was all of the damage that came through Bwipo's ultimate, and then forced SK into their own jungle, so they didn't have proper positioning on the mid lane wave. So that's Drake into mid-tower into Baron control. That was a huge win for Fnatic.
And you can see it in the gold as well. And earlier, the only thing that we gave in SK's corner was the Dragons in their favor, but now it's triple Infernal for Fnatic. They're going to go into quad Infernal on the Dragon Soul. 4-0-1 for Rekkles, and the gold difference just continuing to increase in favor of Fnatic as they steadily get more and more control of this game as they choke SK out. And Limit has to be careful here. If he oversteps, if he goes down, it might be just enough to get Fnatic the Baron.
Does have Karma around the corner, so Sacre can help leap him to safety. That's all I got.
Yeah. Well, I mean, right now, we're kind of in the stalled out period. This is always what happens in any game that's going to go towards, you know, Dragon Soul or a couple Barons potentially, is this kind of brief window of pause where teams are taking turns resetting, pushing out waves. Jenax wants to change that. Jenax is on a one-man mission to fight Bwipo. Bad news is Nemesis is already on his retreat point and he's forced to flash out to safety. GPL comes in. Good damage.
Selfmade.
Oh, on the hunt. That's the Predator. One-shots him over the wall. A bit of a taste of her own medicine for the LeBlanc players out there. Selfmade finishes it up. A Crownshot. Gonna lay down a bit more damage. Fnatic just want to keep this fight going. It may not be a fight that they wanted to pick, but it's one that they're more than happy to take. Big damage comes in for the LeBlanc. Sacre has to run for the hills, and he just gets taken down too. Selfmade is on a mission to kill every single SK player. Rekkles now taken into the front lines. 1v1 versus Crownshot. Taken out just like that. Hylissang on the backside. This is going to be an ace. Fnatic are just cleaning them up. They're having fun with it too. Let's bounce, says Hylissang. Let's kick you right out of playoffs. While we're at it, Fnatic take the fight.
And that was a great read from Fnatic on SK. The fact that Nemesis was shadowing underneath Bwipo. Like, Jenax has been down here the entire game. I bet we could catch this LeBlanc, and then they caught everyone else. That was like the ultimate buy one, get one, and one, and one, and one
Piece
free.
of candy. Ooh, piece of candy. Ooh, SK member. Ooh, SK member. And now it's Fnatic Baron. They got a 6K gold lead. They're going to clean this one up. Jenax is on.
Can he be the hero?
This is... I don't think so.
The human Italy Spear. If he hits Selfmade, he'll just kill him.
He can still try to go for it.
I
He tries to
believe.
go for it right now. We can get it done. Oh, it was not the time for conservative plays, but I understand why you wouldn't want to risk it. The game surely ends if you're dead for 60 seconds after a play like that. Hylissang leaps into him. Didn't know LeBlanc was coming. You have to guess. And goodbye to Hylissang. That's your consolation, your door prize.
Did Hilly die for that ward?
Your goodie bag. I mean, supports and wards, I think, strong attachment there.
Okay, so I gave too much credit for Nemesis being like, oh yeah, he knew Jenax was gonna be there. He was like, blue buff, delicious. LeBlanc.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, the from the 3-point line.
Yep.
Is this a replay or is this a say? Okay, no, this is
No.
the replay. So the thing that I want to point out with this composition is how well it chases. We've talked about all the different layerings of CC, but think about the slow from the barrels, the slow from the other barrels, the knockback from the cast, the reach and chase from ZAC, and the sticky arms. Like, Fnatic's comp can chase for years.
I mean, it's true. You've got Make It Rain from Misfortune and extra slow packed in there, especially as you get later in the game and Rekkles actually starts to put points in that ability. Hylissang can just leap with 2,000 range at any time he chooses. It's pretty impossible to get away. You've got Whimsy on Lulu, so GRAGAS is always going to be right up in your face.
I just think on an open map, when there's no towers and you have so far to run, this is a super obnoxious composition
You
to get away
can't run.
from.
Fnatic are cavalry, SK are infantry. They're getting run down here. If they don't get their setup, you know, we've all seen Braveheart. We all know how this one goes. You gotta get the spears in the ground. SK don't have the spears in the ground, fight's not gonna go their way.
As the last Infernal Drake, the Infernal Soul, about to take over in 20 seconds. SK, this is your moment. Your last stand, potentially.
Give him the speech, William Ball. Let's go.
I believe in you, Jenax. Through your damage alone, you can possibly turn the game. Find the right target.
Inspiring Frostgurn. For
That's all I
now,
got.
SK will walk away. Trick on the backside. Jenax, is this his time to shine? He's got the blue pot. He's ready to go, but they're going to give up Infernal Cell. And now Fnatic just say, come at me. They're ready to get a fight kicked off. Trick goes for the kick, and he just gets immediately one-shot. Through the air comes Hylissang for the follow-up. Pulls it back into the APHELIOS turret, and now that's going to be it. Jenax goes to the backside, but honestly, it's just too little too late. Crownshot going to step forward. Maybe he gets something done with the chakram, though, but it's not enough. That gangplank barrel was big damage. The triple kill to close it out for Rekkles.
You can't get away. The teleport comes in. Fnatic are going to do the victory lap because it is surely all over. This is the old El Clasico, but today it really shows the new chapter in the LEC, how different times have changed as Fnatic just steamroll SK.
Absolutely. A few glimmers of hope for SK, but glimmers are not enough to get you into playoffs. And Fnatic happily move into the base, look to close this one out, look to close it out with style. SK will be knocked out of playoff contentions. Fnatic will move up and continue the fight for first place here in the LEC.
I will say, respect to SK to look for the LeBlanc Lee Sin. It feels like for so long, Trick has been a bit invisible on the map, has been getting a lot of heat from the community, and definitely did try to change it up with a more heavy-oriented gank style and teaming up with Jenax. And I'm gonna say for the first 7 minutes, it looked okay.
Yeah, it was, of course, a 36-minute game, though, so not quite the amount of time they needed. And it's always sad to see this adaptation in the final moments when it feels like it's the last breath, the last chance, the last shot for any team. But of course for Fnatic, reminding us why they sit at the top of the table. It was clean, it was coordinated, it was a little bit weird, if we're completely honest, in the draft phase, but Fnatic make it work.
I do want to underline that word weird and again change it out for creative. And as we are looking for the Fnatic versus G2 later on this weekend, I think it is so crucial that Fnatic have kind of taken up the mantle that G2 started with all these crazy flex picks. The fact that they have now this potential to flex ZAC in 3 different positions, super critical coming into this weekend's games.
Gonna make it that much more difficult for the game tomorrow, Fnatic versus G2, but your key player of the game at LEC on Twitter, Bwipo, Selfmade, Hylissang. Personally, I think the circle was robbed, but, you know, who am I to judge? Coming up next, we're gonna have XL versus Misfits just after an interview with Hylissang. We'll see you after the break.